Thank you for joining me for another episode of Keeping It Real with America's Supermom. I'm excited about my next guest. I have Stephen here, and we got acquainted last week through a networking event. And so I'm excited to kind of dive into more topics, get to know him a little better. But before we do that, I want to give Stephen the opportunity to introduce himself.
Cool. Hi. Thank you so much, Lachelle. Stephen Melville. Let's see, where do I begin about myself, journey, and just kind of overall, who is Stephen Melville? Well, come to you from Canada, just outside of Vancouver to be specific. And let's see, in terms of just who I am, sales, relationship building, community building, marketing, and those kind of skill sets is kind of my bread and butter, specifically in hospitality event industry background. And I just found that being in a position of sales, building relationships, helping others succeed in their businesses and helping others in their challenges that they're facing in their business or personal life due to this pandemic has definitely helped with how I can take it to the next level with my community building.
I love that because, so often a lot of people are in this space of they had a job for years. The industry changed during COVID and they have no idea where to go from there. Right.
That's tough.
But one of the things you mentioned in your intro is you understand the skills and experiences and everything that you're bringing to the table to help you pivot. Even though you didn't say all these things, but that's what I'm gathering from what you're saying, because you've connected the dots. And a lot of people are in that space where they have tunnel vision. Okay, I'm into real estate and this is my life. It's been my security for so many years, and they don't know how to reinvent themselves or to expand their vision for what they can provide without it being face to face. So what advice would you be able to give somebody who is in that space? Because I see that a lot of people are in that somewhat of a transition that can help them to draw from their experience and different things to the table to kind of reinvent themselves.
Well, these are very good questions. It's kind of the $1 million question, isn't it? So I take back. So I referenced back a couple of months ago. I did a podcast for a good friend of mine. His name is Adrian Starks, and he does a lot of champion up. That's kind of his mantra. Anyways, so we were talking about in this topic in this space, and so some of the things that I draw on is about I use the term mental modeling as to kind of a way to, if some things didn't work out, how can I pivot next, and just kind of look ahead, and just if the worst case scenario happens, at least I prepared myself. Preparation is key. So that's kind of what I've done. And then in terms of the next steps, well, there was a piece of advice that I was given in an online event, and it was something to do with riding the wave. If one wave is just calm, it's there, but there's no activity, what wave can you ride on that could use your skill sets in that space or in that new water?
I love that. I use that with my kids. I call riding the wave, but it's a little different because, you have most parents that are nagging your kids about do the dishes or do whatever. But, I let them kind of set the stage for what they want and identify the things that they want, attach it to things that, everybody can benefit from. So then I just remind them, what are the things that you're working towards? And it comes from a different place rather than, here's mom riding me about whatever. I do that with their school, because I let them determine what kind of grades they want to make. So I'm like, if you want to get a straight A's, should you be doing your homework or waiting to the last minute? And then they answer the question with their behavior. So I love the way that you put that. I think that's very important to find ways that we can transition into different models. So riding the wave. So it's finding out what the trends are and the skills that you bring to the table so that you can jump on that trend
Mm-hmm.
with your expertise.
Mm-hmm. So specifics to that. So being that my background is hospitality sales, and so with hospitality here in Canada, it's there's no other term other than it's completely devastated to use.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've reached out to some of the colleague or industry peers to kind of see how they've been able to pivot, navigate, and get into a space that they could use their transferable skills in a sector that they haven't been trained into doing. And so that takes a certain bit of tenacity, takes a certain bit of perseverance, and if you're in the sales space, I mean, essentially sales is everything. It's a transferable skill. It's just a matter of showing that to the next chapter. But to doing so, to me, if there's a new space to get into, let's learn about the space. Let's learn about that water. Let's learn about your skill set, but then using specific terms, phrases, and perhaps some sort of background into it to really stand out.
I love that. And I think, marrying that with certain industries can help you with the emotional intelligence. Because if you have somebody that's well versed in the skill, then they have a little bit more bandwidth to make themselves conscious of the customer experience and different things that can really help navigate and solidify those relationships a lot better.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
That's key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what are some things that you have learned about yourself, your industry, business, or whatever during this pandemic?
Well, I was before I came onto your show here. I was attending an event. It's called GMID, Global Meetings Industry Day, and I was one of 4 co-hosts of that event. And one of the speakers who did the presentation on just what does it take to jumpstart our industry back, and vaccines and treatments and vaccination passports were definitely the forefront of that conversation. But there was a quote extracted that from, I believe, the CEO of the American Lodging and Hotel Association. Can't remember his name, but he's saying that the hospitality, the industry, is a never-ending optimism. Folks, I think if you're out, I don't know if you can truly be out. Like, that's kind of my journey going through right now. Whatever direction I go in, am I just going to leave it entirely, or do I just have like a little foot still in it just to see kind of how it turns around? So I think to a degree, yeah, there's some definite truth behind that statement. And I'm seeing a lot of posts through my LinkedIn feeds and channels that and social media networks that those who are out, they've found a way to get back in. So it tells you that when you're out, you can't be out. You can't. It just drags you back in. But anyways, but to some. But I know if I'm just talking about just from what I've seen out there. But for myself, this is part of that beginning journey that I'm essentially going through right now. So we'll see. Yeah.
Definitely stretch out of the comfort zone. But my history is tainted with 13 years of depression and 3 hospitalizations. And, when the world, everything went kind of chaotic, I was just like, wow, now everybody knows what I've experienced in my life. So I felt like, hey, I can definitely guide you through this. Okay. But,
and that's the other thing. Mental health is very much, I think it's going to be further talked about years ahead, just for the fact that with lockdowns and restrictions, it takes a toll, my goodness, on your mental health.
Yeah, so true. And, if you're not able to have outlets and even, we're in a world where these things get swept under the rug.
Yeah.
So to even talk about it is a big deal. I've had so many friends of mine that, even race relations, we're having conversations that we normally wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
because of everything happening in, this full grown scale. So
Sure.
I definitely get that. But, awareness, conversations is how
Mm.
the healing and change takes place. So
That's
I
where it needs
definitely
to.
would agree with you.
That that.
Hmm.
Oh man, that's where change starts, right? Just having a conversation.
Yeah. And I think, just relieving the burden. I was just having a conversation with a gentleman yesterday that I met at a networking event. And we were just talking about a lot of times we bear the burden of people before us when we didn't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think some of those feelings come up when we're talking about race. And I'm like, I just approach thing as today. I can't do anything about hundreds of years ago and
Mm-hmm.
what that reality was. I can only deal with today and what
Indeed.
I can build on from here. And I think that really can relieve a lot of people
Mm-hmm.
because there's some people that are stuck there. And it's like, that's being stuck in the past that you can't change.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
And,
I can only imagine. And then yeah, so I mean, and what example do I set my kids now to what their future looks like?
so
That's
true.
part of that's all also part of the conversation.
So true. Now,
Mm-hmm.
so we're moving forward, pivoting, changing. What are some things that you do that kind of helps you to be in that place? Because you seemed like you are very um flexible, when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
some of the things that we have to be faced with because of your statements throughout the interview of being community based and things of that nature. So, what
Mm-hmm.
tips would you give other people about things that they should incorporate in their daily routine to help them maintain that mindset?
Well, with going back to what we talk about mental health is like what does it take to you to kind of once it, if you're in that frame of chaos, how can you help yourself to just take a breath?
Hmm.
No, for me that's exercise. For me that's there's tons of outdoor space and mountains and lakes and waterways and uh, able to connect with nature,
Hmm.
so that's very helpful.
Hmm.
Even
Yep.
if it's just activities with my child, with my 4-year-old who's
Hmm.
going to be going into kindergarten in September. Can't wait for that. How can I nurture that love of learning? Helps me
Yes.
get better. Helps. I think it makes me a better father, and it just makes me happy that he's experiencing all these opportunities that perhaps maybe we didn't have the chance to, or maybe didn't even think about even before going to before lockdown and all that, and stay at home and getting close to home and all that fun, all that stuff.
So true. I mean, having children definitely always kind of keeps another perspective in the forefront because, seeing it
Hmm.
through their eyes. And I get where a lot of these decision makers get that tunnel vision because it's really out of sight, out of mind. If you don't
Hmm.
think about the youth, because you don't have them in your house, if you're an empty nester, that's
Hmm.
not going to be the first thing that comes to mind. But
Hmm.
it's when you have children that helps you kind of be more compassionate and have empathy for others because you recognize what some people experience where they may not feel like they have a voice. And
Hmm.
kids are quite a big indicator of that.
Hmm.
So for people that are networking, they're used to being in that face-to-face environment. What tips would you give them about being able to grow and continue to build these relationships in a time where they can't always be face-to-face?
Well, the more direct, I guess say the more direct way to connect, I guess right now in a safe manner would be to just this
Mhm.
online for this current time.
Mhm.
Depending on where you are in the world, if there's ability to, I know for us here in British Columbia in Canada, we have your safe 10, but you have to meet outdoors and socially distance and safety protocols in place. So if you have ability to do that with loved ones in your safe 10 that you can distance and still can have a chat and connect, do that. Obviously safety is key in any sort of situation, but I know I've reached out to friends that I hadn't seen prior to during this whole COVID thing, and so it's nice just to pick up a phone call and say, hey, how are you doing? Hope you and your family doing well, and just check in on your friends that hadn't seen in a while, or your family, or acquaintances that you've come across in your whether it be personal or personal or professional life, and just say, hey, just checking in, how you doing? Something simple, something simple, even a text message, something simple.
Yeah, I love that because, a lot of times we think things are so big, they have to have a big impact, and it's the little things to make it through a day that make all the difference. And a text message, a call can be huge in a time where you feel like you're by yourself.
Indeed. Absolutely. Reach out. Or if, that's what I'm going to say. Just reach out.
That's awesome.
It's on the universe and see what happens. It's funny. There's so many things I've left in the universe in both professional and personal life, and it's more often than not it receives back. Sometimes it takes a little bit of massaging to get that response, but one way or another, I get it.
Yeah, so true. Now, follow up is the thing I like to find out from a lot of people, because they say the fortune is in the follow up. So when it comes to business, what is your follow-up strategy?
Follow-up strategy. You mean in terms of how I communicate?
A lead, or, just a client, I just am intrigued to find everybody's different way that they do that.
Yeah. Well, with learning about or just getting really familiar with online platforms, it seems with SteamYard you use, I know I use Zoom quite a lot. So setting up video calls is to where I'm sitting at right now with future employers, trying to set those up. And it's whether through that means LinkedIn is really good. I've used that. I continue to use that a lot for leads and prospects. Pick up a phone or send an email. But I like the phone call method because it's actually a human voice. And I know some it depends on who you're speaking to. They not maybe so in they may not be wanting to do it maybe a Zoom at that moment in time, just because they're probably fatigued out. So we need as simple as a phone call is just to hear a personal voice can make all the difference too.
So true. And I totally agree, because, we forget about some of these tools that we have in our toolbox. We get so caught up in, have you posted on Instagram today, or Facebook or LinkedIn? And, we forget that, okay, I do have a phone in my hand. I can call somebody,
Yeah. And I think for anyone, I think your own person, like you is also like a personal brand. You are a personal brand. So how can you get out there in your brand, in your messaging, depending on which way you go with prospecting for yourself or for a company? How do you brand yourself? Yeah. And how does it perceive to others? Yeah. And also too, it's key it's key in the messaging too. It's I find with finding new connections and new leads, it's not about what you want from them, it's what you can provide.
I love that. Yeah, because a lot of people, they miss that. It's like they want to go that next level in their business. They want to make that extra income. But what is that exchange going to be? The more value you provide, the more income you're going to receive, because you are solving a problem, saving somebody time, or saving them money, right?
Exactly.
So that is awesome.
Yeah, you're trying to solve a problem in exchange for compensation, but how do you get them to trust you? For a person that you've never met before. And going in guns blazing, thinking that you're the key to all their problems is not a way to sell, my friends.
So true. So true. Yeah. And I think there's that element of education, because I'm in the coaching industry, And
Right.
so often people come thinking that they know what they need. Now
Mm-hmm.
they know they need help, and then
Mm-hmm.
they try to diagnose themselves. So if you listen to them, which
Mm-hmm.
is why they having this problem in the first place, they're
Mm-hmm.
stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I going to listen to them and think that they know the issue? Because
Mm-hmm.
it's only a symptom of a
Mm-hmm.
deeper problem. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's not until you get into that educational part that
Mm-hmm.
people only use the language that they know. So if I
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what, I'm attracting the wrong people, you're not
Mm-hmm.
going to, if I talk to you about boundaries, you're not going to know
Mm-hmm.
what those are until I explain, well, this is what happened for me. I was in the
Mm-hmm.
same space you were in, but I did A, B, or C
Mm-hmm.
called a boundary. This is how the part of it happens where people
Mm-hmm.
only know based on the problem that they're having, if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good stuff. Now, so what books or podcasts would you recommend to everybody?
Well, if I can show you the kind of books that I've read along the way. Oh, also too, you talked about mental health.
Yes,
Find a book club.
that's good.
These are all from my book club.
Oh, I love it. Look,
Yeah,
I need to get a pen.
please do. Well, you got this. I'm sure you'll have this recorded, so you can go
I
back
know
on the
I
page.
love books.
Yeah,
Okay, let me see if I've read any of those. Tell me
yeah.
what they are because it's kind of
So
hard.
this is Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry. I'm just going to put the stack down right here. I'm just going to
Okay.
go through it. So this is the most recent one that I read, Necessary Endings by
Mm.
Dr. Henry Cloud. And this one resonates with me because I had an ending that wasn't what that was out of my control, and I had to process this and move on. Which I'm
Wow.
still actually
Now,
in process, but I've dealt with it, and now I'm trying to move on.
okay, so let me ask you this:
Sure.
how long do you guys take to cover a book in your book club?
Do a chapter a week, sometimes 2 chapters a week.
Oh,
So
okay.
it could take from, I would say, probably in about 4 months.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And then depending on holidays too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Be a kick-ass radical candor. Be a kick-ass boss without losing your humanity.
Mm.
This for the techies out there. There's a lot of Google and Apple applications and learnings and teachings in this book. So let's read that. Oh my goodness, this lady right here can't do no wrong, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, I've heard a lot from Burnett, and I love her the way she speaks.
Mm-hmm.
It's so right to the point. I love that.
Yeah, and it's all
Dare
about
to lead.
courage and finding your courage to lead better. Is my takeaway from her. Power of the Other.
Mm.
Who
Henry
is?
Cloud seems to be popular with you guys. I've
Seems like.
never heard of him before.
Oh no. Well, I gotta say this one is who the heck do you want in your corner?
Wow.
Who can support you to be the better version of yourself in
That's
personal
good.
and in business? Let's see.
I asked the right person the question about books. This is good. I'm excited. I collect books, okay? So I
Well,
love it.
good, because I got 3 more to go through. We got
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, The Infinite Game.
Yeah, it's
Never
talking.
read that one either.
It's all about. It's all about looking through a lens of long term versus short.
I love that.
And
Yeah.
it applies to companies who always thought always in the short, but never had a
Mm,
long game strategy.
love that. That's good.
And then,
Definitely a good parenting book. That one there.
100%. Because legacy is key, and legacy is through your kids.
I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
we miss that oftentimes with the
Yeah.
shiny objects. Okay, what are the last 2 now?
Smarter, faster, better.
I have that book. I
Do you
haven't
got
read
this
it
one?
yet. Charles
No,
Duhigg?
that's the one.
Yes, I have it. I haven't read it yet.
Cool.
But it was a big book. I haven't started it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm gonna read that one then. I've got the paperback. I mean the hardback.
The hard copy. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one to me, it's really good with, especially, I find out right now with a lot of companies, they've had to really re-strategize So a lot of even established companies are in startup space, in startup mind. So this would be a good book if you're in that space, in that startup mind, because there's just one passage, I believe it's this book, where it's about and is using a war analogy about firing bullets, and then if they land, then you hit the cannonball. If you know that you've got a really good idea or strategy that actually will do well from concept to come to product. So it's got some contingent. And lastly, the coaching habit. So this guy's a Canadian guy out of Toronto, I believe. But it's more about asking questions and getting your people to give you the answers, rather than giving a preemptive response to a solution that you may or may not otherwise would have known if you didn't listen.
So true. That is huge.
Listening. America's SuperMom, if there's any sort of takeaway, listen more. Stop preemptive responses to think you know the problem, because chances are you don't.
Exactly. And, I mean, that's just like the thing with riding the wave. If you ask people the right questions, they'll motivate themselves. You just help them get that clarity, So I love that. I mean, it's all in the questions. That's great. And I'm just so glad. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think you can be a better leader if you ask more questions rather than the alternatives. And that's what I try to do in my leadership style all the time. I take leadership seriously, as you can blatantly see from all these books.
Definitely. I'm loving it. Okay. I'm just, hey, I'm excited I'm going to read that book I've got. I haven't even got started yet.
Yeah.
Now, and I love the book club thing. Now, so when you go through your book club, what do you find is the most beneficial with that? Because, you hear about book clubs, but what is it that really keeps you engaged, or whatever? How's you guys format?
SuperMom, I don't know if it's just the energy is just trying to tell me something, or there's something in the universe that's telling me something, but those books, and there's been others that I didn't have to show. However, it seemed like every single one had a passage or some sort of takeaway that was parallel to what was happening in my life in that current moment in time.
Wow. That's good.
And so we're taking a bit of a break, but hopefully we can get back to this book club post pandemic and post summer. But sorry, you were asking me something about.
Yes, I was saying, what keeps your club like really engaging for you? Because people are like, yeah, we need to read this book, but it seems like you're pretty dedicated. So how do you get that? With that type of environment?
I think it's just because the leaders in this group, they're grounded business owners who, and it's mostly male.
Okay.
But we get real, and we can be a little vulnerable. And as well as a good friend of mine who's one of the leaders of it, he was my coach for months, and we're best friends today. So I also have a very much personal commitment to it as well.
That's awesome.
Because it gets personal.
Yeah. I think that's the thing we miss. We don't want to, we read books for the fantasy of it all, but we don't have that element of bringing it home, which causes a lot of people to not grow. Correct. I'd rather implement something to have my own story rather than keep telling somebody else's story when I can create my own. That's kind of what I look for when I read books.
Yeah, create your own story. Absolutely.
So this has been great.
I love it. I didn't know exactly what I was getting into, but you know what? This is all part of growth, right? Just dive in with 2 feet into that water, and you bet, just have fun with it.
It's so true. So true. Well, this has just been wonderful. I mean, I tell you, I get into these conversations and the time flies by. It's like, man, it's time to stop already. I could go on for hours, right?
I know, me too.
So, but I love learning. I mean, I look at every interview as, what is this guest going to teach me? And I just love, like the snippets of takeaways of
Mhm.
mindset shifts. I mean, it really helps me to be a better person right as we are real time having an interview. So that's the thing I really like about it.
Cool. Yeah, me
So,
too.
what is the best way for the audience to get a hold of you?
I would say through LinkedIn. If you
Mhm.
Stephen Melville LinkedIn, and I checked that, and I'm very much engaged with it, and I'd say that's probably the best way to get a hold of me.
Awesome. And
And
so
then we'll
what
connect, and
final
then yeah, we'll take it from there.
and so what final words would you like to leave with the audience today?
Hold on, be kind, and we'll get through this.
Awesome. Great words. I love it. Practical, and it's
Mhm.
something that we can implement right today. So this has just been wonderful. Well, we thank you so much, Stephen, for joining us, sharing your words of wisdom. I
Yeah.
encourage you who are watching to reach out to Stephen. If something really resonated with you, take that time to respond and take action. Don't just sit here and be a spectator, but get involved in changing and transforming your life for the better. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I'll be sure that Stephen gets them. But in the meantime, we want to thank you guys for joining us today in the conversation, and we will see you on the next episode. So bye, everybody, and thanks for watching.
See ya. Thank you.
Mhm.